Hey, Jerry, we're so excited to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here with you guys.
Awesome. So, for everybody watching, welcome to Paid Family Leave Fridays. It's our weekly show where we go live or recorded every week to share with you a personal story about paid family leave. We share information about paid family leave rights, both national and statewide for Californians. And this is our way of empowering you to know about your rights, know about the things that you have the power to do in the workplace, be able to care for your family when they need you, and hopefully to inspire you to also advocate for yourself at work, but also at the policy level, because our laws can always be improved. So this week we have a special guest, Jerry, as I just mentioned, and we're really excited to share his story because he has a very personal story of trying to take paid family leave when he became a father. And I'm just really excited because I think we hear a lot from the mother's perspective, and you'll hear a little bit of that from me today, but it's exciting to hear from the father's perspective. So Jerry, thanks so much for being here on a Friday afternoon after a long work week, I'm sure. We're just so excited to have you.
Of course. Thank you guys for having me. It is a pleasure coming over and sharing my story. I'm sure I'm not the only one, and I'm sure of people having worse times than the times we have gone through. But, story by story, I'm sure that, we'll get out there. Hopefully my story will help in a way to somebody. If not, then you'll be there, and it's definitely helped me for the future if I ever have any more kids.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's something that a lot of advocates face. Like, right, we don't really feel like we should share because we know there are other people who have it worse, right? And it's like, oh, who am I to share? But I think, when I came into this work, we were both at an event, and Jerry was on the stage doing a Q&A panel, and I had asked some questions, and that's how I got to know you a little bit. And I've heard your story several times since then. Jerry and I have both attended several legislative visits together with lawmakers, and I've gotten to hear it several times, but this is the first time we're really sitting down and recording it for other people to hear. So I think your story is super important, and I think that there will be a lot of people who can relate to it and also even learn about things that they didn't know about. So we'll get into that. But first, tell us a little bit about you, like where are you from? How many kids do you have? What do you do for a living? That kind of a thing.
Of course, yes. My name is Jerry Sandoval. I live in San Diego. I've been in San Diego my entire life. That's California for those who are out of the States. You know what? I represent Parent Voices, the San Diego chapter. It is Parent Voices California itself, but I'm in the San Diego chapter. I'm also in the California Working Family Coalition. I'm not sure if you mentioned that earlier, but I am in there as well. I have one kid. Her name is Ariel, which I love very much. Changed my life ever since I had her. And I can't express how much and what she means to me. But definitely here to share a little bit about when she was born and what I went through with paid family leave.
Oh, hearing you talk about your daughter literally is making me emotional. And just, how old is Ariel now?
Yeah, she's 6. She's 6 and a half,
Wow.
according to her. Okay, she is a very smart little girl. Definitely a daddy girl. My only child, and very spoiled for sure. That's I guess some kids get to be spoiled if they're only child.
Yeah. Well, she has an amazing dad watching over her, so I'm sure she's going to grow up to be a powerful and inspiring young woman. But wow, one day I hope Ariel knows just how hard her dad fought for other dads to have the right to be with their kids when their babies are born. So tell us a little bit about that. What was your experience when your partner was going to have, your baby? And like, did you even think about paternity leave? When did it come to your mind?
I never did. Never crossed my mind until there's a coworker who mentioned it. I was always under the impression that only females can get this, paid family leave. It was called maternity leave. So, just the maternity leave aspect of that word, as a male parent, I always thought that it was just for the moms, and obviously because they're the ones who give birth and whatnot for recovery. So I never even thought about as a male having the access to that until somebody mentioned that to me. Then I started looking more into it, and never crossed my mind. I wanted to be home with my kid, and watch her grow with the first 2 weeks, whatever I could. If I could stay home a long time with them, it was just an excited moment for me, something new, right? My kids is the most important thing in my life. It changed my life forever, for sure. I wanted to make sure she was okay. I wanted to make sure the mom was okay, and anything I can help at home, so that she could rest. Obviously, she had just given birth, um, so it went like that. I'll tell you this much: at the time, I was working 2 jobs. One of them
Oh my
was a
gosh.
graveyard job, um, which was from 10 p.m. till 6:30 a.m. And then from after that, I'll head over to my other job, which was from 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Uh, the first year was crazy. I don't know how I did it. I eventually got used to that, but after I got out of my 3:30 p.m. job, I'll head home and try to be with my kid for a little bit. I don't know, maybe a couple hours before I had to rest to start my day again, or my night at 10 p.m. There'll be times where I couldn't sleep. It was daylight, I couldn't sleep.
Mm-hmm.
There was too much noise. I had to get used to that. It was definitely a sacrifice, but for me, it was a sacrifice that that I had to do, and I felt really good about that sacrifice because it was for my kid and my family. You know what I mean? So after that, it was then around the era where I realized that I could take uh, the paternity leave,
Mm-hmm.
and so I looked into it. I got the paperwork, sent it in, and was very excited to finally stay home and rest and actually be with my kid
Mm-hmm.
and the mom. But it was quickly that I realized that they only gave you 60%. As a person who, first of all, didn't even think about getting that or had the right for that, never thought about how much I was going to get paid. I just, wanted to be home with my kid. But working 2 jobs,
Mm-hmm.
I could tell you that it was, I was trying to come up with for my family, so I had to do 2 jobs to support them. Even then, it was kind of like paycheck to paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. It wasn't. There was no break in there. There was never a break. So just think about it. If I'm living paycheck to paycheck, and then I'm trying to get paternity leave, which they only give you 60%. When I realized that 60%, it was gonna be crazy. I was gonna be in a hole. I had to return back to work very quick, very quick.
Mm-hmm.
Disappointing, but at the same time, I was sort of uh, glad to return back to work just because I didn't want to be in a hole, right?
Right.
There was a lot of feelings going on there.
Mm-hmm.
At the very beginning, I was excited and I was thankful, not just for the government that actually had this thing because they're actually offered to the male parents as well. But um, things just don't go the way you want them, right? So I needed 100% of my paycheck to even take a couple of days. That wasn't going to be the case. So I had to go back to work very quick. Um, and sad in a way, but you know what? We have to do what we have to do. And unfortunately, that was my case.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I'm so inspired by your optimism, your hard work, and I just really feel for you because no one should have to go through that. I mean, working 2 jobs and then only getting 60% of your paycheck. And were you even aware that you were paying for this benefit out of your tax dollars? That
Never.
this,
No. I never
wow.
knew I had, we actually pay into this.
Mm-hmm.
I never argued. That's a problem with a lot of us. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We don't get the information, and sometimes we get it and we don't get it right. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, but just not getting the information itself is very important. A lot of us don't even know that we are actually paying into this. And that's one of the things we're fighting for now. And that's why I'm here today. And that's why I think my story, as big or as small as it is, it could benefit somebody out there. We got to be informed, and that's one of the main reasons that I get all this information, and I'm here to distribute that to not just a lot of people, but the small community who don't have access to the media and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I see so many similarities in our stories because I didn't know either that I was paying for it. And I thought it was a benefit through the job that I had. And before I had gotten into this job that enabled me to have health insurance and stuff, I was a restaurant worker. I was pregnant, working at a coffee shop, 5 a.m. shift, and was lucky enough to move on to this other job. But again, I had no idea what my rights were. I just took whatever papers was handed to me by HR. I just took the leave that they told me that I could have and came back when I was told. And I was lucky to have that time. But because I didn't know my rights, I didn't know that my husband had that right. I didn't know that fathers could take the time. So he went back after 2 weeks. He took 2 weeks of unpaid time. I was able to save up for that gap in our pay because of working overtime. So I worked 50 to 60 hours a week through my whole pregnancy in order for him to afford to be out of work for 2 weeks, just for him to be home. And from the woman's perspective, giving birth, I wasn't fully healed until 8 weeks, and he was gone at 2 weeks. So then, then the partner's at home, right, with the baby newborn, you're not sleeping, you're trying to figure out how to breastfeed. And then he comes home from work and I'm completely exhausted. He's completely exhausted. We're both up all night with the baby. And it's a really stressful time. I think even on the partnership, right? Even on the relationship, you're trying to navigate all of that. I'm not going to ask you to speak to that, but I'm just wondering if you relate to kind of what I'm sharing here.
I do, yeah. Especially like you said, you mentioned the relationship. Sometimes I wanted to do as much as I could for
Right.
Ariel's mom, and I didn't want her to feel like I wasn't participating or I didn't want to, help out. That wasn't my case. I wanted to make sure they were safe, and they wanted to, and I wanted them to feel loved, and especially her who had just given birth, and doing the dishes, doing the extra work at the house, cleaning out and doing all that stuff. That way she could rest and recover. For sure, I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think it's so unfair. How are we supposed to build these healthy communities, right? If you're stretched so thin and your partner's stretched so thin. And then we know, there's so many studies, especially spearheaded by California, that the first 5 years are critical, but especially the first 6 months of a child's life to form neuron connections in the brain, to bond with their parents and their caregivers, for the partners to adjust to this new life, right, of being parents and the recovery process. So we know from a health standpoint and a community health and a public health standpoint, how essential that time is. And yet you and I had no idea, there's no infrastructure for us to just know this as we become parents. And I think that's what fuels both of us. I came into the work for the same reasons it sounds like you did. It was just devastating to not have had this information. And then to realize you're not the only one, right? And there are a whole bunch of other fathers and mothers out there that don't have that. So it's just so critical. But I wanted to talk to you about the fact that you learned that you had this time, that you could take this time. You learned that this was an option for you, but then you still had to go back to work. So for anyone watching that doesn't know, at the time that Jerry took his time, you were eligible for 6 weeks of paid time through the paid family leave program, but you have to go back to work after 1 or 2 weeks.
That is correct. It was first very quick, a week, I will say. Wow. Not only that, and the process is delayed. So once you applied, you can't get paid anywhere, because otherwise, it's a process where you apply and then it takes 2 weeks for them to actually send the money in. I was stressed out because I was not getting it. I had to send more paperwork in there, and then first check comes in and it just hits you, right? Hey,
Yep.
I can't, whoa, what's going on? I can't do this. I had to go and tell at work I was coming back early because I did request 6 weeks, but I told work, hey, listen, I'm coming back to work early. I hope it's still okay. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, like all this information, it needs to be out there, and that's why I'm here to just relay that information and make sure everybody understands it.
Yeah. And I think there's something a part of that, that kind of leads to the next point I wanted to make, which is that 60% is just not enough. You were already working 2 jobs and already living paycheck to paycheck, and you weren't even able to take the full time that you were allotted because 60% is just not enough. And as we know, when we have a baby, our expenses go up, not down, right?
Yep.
We have diapers, formula, all the things that you have to buy when you have a new child, and 60% of your paycheck is the last thing that you need. And then you're dealing with stress, and you're trying to bond, and you're trying to help and do more around the house to help your partner. And so that's one of the things I wanted to bring up, because the wage replacement rate, it being so low, it excludes so many people from this benefit. So even though millions and millions of Californians are paying for this benefit through the mandatory tax deduction on our paychecks, so many of us are being excluded, mostly Black and brown people, because we're the ones usually statistically working working 2 jobs, working lower wage jobs, that mean that even though we have a right to this benefit, we're not able to take that time. And so I wanted to talk about the wage replacement work that we're doing this year. We have a policy that is being led by Assemblymember Lorena Gonzalez, that Jerry is aware of, and we are working together to help push this bill through. Lorena Gonzalez is fighting for wage replacement to be 90%. And I want people to understand that the wage replacement, the money that you get from the EDD, the Employment Development Department, to fund that time off that you're taking, right, to bond with your child, you don't pay tax on it. So taxes, if it's not being removed, ends up leading you to be about 100%. So I just wanted to explain the rationale behind why it's 90% and not 100%. It'll get you to 100. However, we know that this is going to be a major fight, right? We know that there's going to be a lot of opposition, typically from Republican Assembly members and senators, who are going to say that this is like terrible and there's no way to fund this. However, we know that people like you, Jerry, and people like me, and a whole bunch of other people like us, it's such an inequity to say that we have this program, to say that we're a state that cares about families, but then to not meet families where we're at. And so I think your story is just such a good example that we need better wage replacement. Last year, the new law got initiated or implemented that the weeks that you could take off increased from 6 to 8, and people are so excited about it. But it doesn't matter if there's 8 weeks or 20 weeks or 30 weeks. It doesn't matter if you're still going back to work after 1 week, because you have to work 2 jobs to survive, and 60% is just not enough. So I really wanted to highlight that for people watching, because if you are in that same boat where you're like, okay, great, I know I have 6 weeks. Okay, great, my job might be protected, but 60% is just not feasible. I just can't pay my bills, especially in California, where the housing is so expensive. Like the housing is already 60% of most of us, our salaries is like our rent is like 60% gone, right?
Yeah.
So, we know that just doesn't work for Californians. And I think it's so critical that our lawmakers hear from people like you and anybody else watching this who's passionate about increasing the wage replacement rate. Anybody else watching this, really, our lawmakers need to hear from all of us. They need to know that the way the law currently is not working for us. And if there's one thing, I don't know, Jerry, if you've seen this in the advocacy work we've been doing, meeting with legislators virtually all of 2020, we kept hearing, oh, we don't hear enough from workers. We don't hear enough from parents. We don't hear enough from caregivers. And that's why the law stayed the same. And I saw firsthand how critical it was that we are showing up, sharing our stories, and putting pressure on these people to create policy solutions to solve these problems that we're facing. What was your experience last year meeting with all these legislators, talking to them about like these issues we're facing?
Well, you know what? It was a little nerve-wracking at the beginning just because I've never done that. I understand these are big-time people in the capital and things like that. So I wanted to go in there and make sure they understood what I was trying to get to them.
Hmm.
And you're right about, people not speaking up a lot. I mean, and they might be right. You know what I mean? And so that's why we are trying to get as many people to speak up and say what we need. Uh, like you said, 6 weeks is what we had, and with 60% pay. It doesn't matter if they give me 6 months. I can't even take a week. So it's crazy. I wanted to share with you something that I was asked once, and I'm sure that I probably said it before, because I was asked once in a job interview what was more important, was it my job or my family? And my answer to them was that my job came first, but my family came before that. So
Hmm.
um, it is important for us to have a job, right? Listen, I the way I did it, it was because I didn't want to be a criminal. I'm not a criminal at all.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I don't want to go be a thief. I don't want to do this. So we work. People like me
Hmm.
work. It doesn't matter if it's a minimum wage payment, but we work it out. We work, and it's something we earn. And if we are going to pay into this as a tax, we should be able to have access to it. It's kind of like, that they make the law with 60%. Hey, listen, oh, well, you know what, Jerry, we have this. See if you can qualify for it. And I'll be like, no, oh, unfortunately, I can't. Oh, yeah, okay, well, you don't qualify for it. But wait, we still want you to pay into it, okay?
Hmm.
So it's bad. In my opinion, it sucks because I'm throwing my
Hmm.
money in there and I can't get access to that.
100%.
But we are working on it, like you said, with I believe it's AB Assembly Bill 123
Hmm.
is what Lorena Gonzalez is introducing, and we need to back that up. Is 90% of it. We need to fight for that. It is something that the community deserves, especially those hard worker parents out there
Hmm.
that sometimes don't speak up of fear. A lot of times it's fear. And we have people like me, for example, who have lost that fear and are fighting for those out there in the community.
Oh man, you make such a good point, and thanks for bringing that back up, because that's something that I'm going to reiterate, because a lot of us don't realize we are all paying into this. If you are an employee, you're not a federal worker, you're not an independent contractor, you're an employee, you are mandated. It is mandatory by law for you to pay into what's called the state disability insurance fund. That's what funds your paid family leave when you take time off to bond with your child, when you take time off for a serious illness or to care for someone who has a serious illness. That is the fund that we draw from. We are all paying into it. You can check your pay stub. It says CASDI. We are all paying into it. And how devastating is it that we're all paying into something and most of us don't get to use that money? Most of us don't get, we have to end up fighting so hard to make it through the tough times of giving birth or being there when you got a newborn, and you don't have that infrastructure, that support system to enable you to take some time away from your job to just be home. And it's such an injustice. It kind of feels criminal in a sense to require all of us to pay into this and then not enable us to use it. And so I think part of it's just that awareness, right? Because I had no idea. I've had 2 children and I didn't know for either child. And I used to work at a corporation that had HR and everything, and they didn't even make me aware. So, it's really up to us to not only educate people, make them aware, but also bring all of you watching into the fold. All of you watching have a story. All of you watching know what it's like to have a child or to have to take care of a loved one and to deal with the stress of working or losing a paycheck. And we know that there are millions of Californians out there who can relate to this. And so we want to invite all of you to join us in fighting for AB 123. It's really easy to remember. It's basically what this policy is called. It's the policy proposal that is trying to bring that wage replacement rate up to 90%. And we want to invite you all to join us on legislative visits to join us in calling your assembly members and senators. And if you have no idea what we're talking about, and if you've never done it before, Jerry and I both were new to this at some point.
Yeah.
We both had no idea. We both have such similar stories. We didn't know about paid family leave. We didn't know we've been paying into it all this time. We didn't know that the wage replacement was so low, we had to go running back to work. Like, listen, we understand the fear that comes from having to advocate for yourself, to having to speak to these big shot legislators in the Capitol. But we want you to know that they don't bite, and that they have to listen to us, because our tax dollars are paying for their salary. And once you start to understand that dynamic, that these legislators, their job is to create policy solutions to address problems in the community. So it's our job to make them aware of the problems in the community. And so we just want to invite all of you to become advocates with us. Like, let's normalize advocating for ourselves. Let's normalize creating laws that work for us, because these laws are affecting us in every area of our life. These laws affect where we work. They affect how much gas costs. They affect how much we pay for our electric bill and how much time we get when we have a new child. We don't realize how much laws systematically impact every exchange we have in our lives. And we get to be a part of that process. We get to be a part of that creation of that process. And if anyone feels discouraged or disgruntled about politics, I don't know, Jerry, how you felt about politics like beforehand, but I was like, I'm staying out of politics. I want nothing to do with it. Like, I was raised in a household that was like, we don't talk about politics here. It's too divisive. Like, what was that like for you? Like, thinking, oh, am I getting into politics? Or like, were you excited or were you hesitant?
I never wanted to get into politics. I still don't think I am into politics. No way. You're the same. We don't, and when we get together, we don't talk about politics or the religion for what it is. But I felt like I was getting into it just because I kept doing visits on Zoom with politicians and asking, doing this and learning about this policies. I knew nothing about them, nothing whatsoever. Like you said, once you realize you're paying into it. I started working when I was 16 years old, and I had my kid when I was 29, 30. So, I mean, I sat there and I thought about it. I mean, I've been paying for this thing for 13, 14 years, and I can't get a full paycheck out of it. But the way it is set up is that, it is the way that it's complicated, but we are working on getting it better, and we should succeed in the future. We're just going to keep working and keep working. Yep. So as you said, we'd like to invite everybody to join us on this thing. And it's a process that I'm sure is not going to be easy, but it will take us somewhere, and we're starting here, and we'll get there for sure.
We will. Thanks for that encouraging message. And I just want to say, like, just like you, yeah, we just never got involved in politics. I never thought I would. But I think what I realized is that it's the lack of involvement is why we don't have laws that reflect who we are and what we need, because people like us aren't infiltrating that process, aren't becoming involved in using our voices. And it's really just because we're not aware of how to participate. And so I think I just want people to know you don't have to like want to have a career in politics or even like it. It's really just about making a more just world for all of us and supporting families and workers in California, and hopefully federally we can do this across the nation. But we start small, we think big.
Of course.
But last year it was really exciting because a policy that the coalition had been working on for over a decade was passed. And I just want to make sure everyone knows that it's policy SB 1383. And what it did was expanded job protection to 6 million more Californians. So if you're worried that nothing can get done, know that things do get done, and like new rights do get passed. But it did not happen without the work of, honestly, thousands of people calling their legislators, dozens of organizations organizing their communities to make sure that our legislators heard our voices and heard that we needed more equitable paid family leave. And part of that equity process is making sure that people can take it without being fired. And so now we're working on a new angle, which is that people need to get a full paycheck when they're taking that leave. They need to be able to stay home without having to freak out about their finances. Yep. They need to be able to provide for their families without having to rush back to work. And so that we're going to keep tackling this issue from every angle. And, we're an awesome team of advocates. Jerry and I are two of many. And we just want to invite you all to join us. We want to normalize activism. We want to get people involved and know that you really can make a difference, and we can keep improving things for families. And even if it's just planting seeds this year and then we pick up the fight next year, I think it's a fight that we do need to pick up for sure.
You know what? Every story matters out there. And that's what we're talking about, bringing up and speak up and say something. Every story matters, and every story is important. You as a person who has a family, whether you're a female or a male, you need to come up for your family. Speak up. We need to share these stories because they need to hear us. We are the people who vote for them to select them into office to represent us. And they need to represent what we are in need of. So if we don't speak up, things will not change. So we need to come out and say what we need, express ourselves, and all of our stories are important for sure.
Oh, I love that. That is such a good place to end. I just want everyone to know that to learn more about Parent Voices of California, I'm going to link y'all's website and social media handles on our website, in the description on our YouTube channel. And to learn how you can advocate with us in the coalition, you can go to workfamilyca.org/advocacy. And that will take you to a page where you can sign up, get your details in, contact us, let us know, because we are building a massive movement of individuals, parents, caregivers, workers, because our voices need to be heard, and it's time that our laws reflected the needs that we have. So yeah, I'm excited for 2021 and all that it's going to bring, especially with this new administration we have. I think we're really going to make a lot of progress in building an economy that cares about us. So I'm excited. Thank you so much, Jerry. Really, you've inspired me. You've reminded me why I'm doing this work. And hopefully, I think you've inspired so many other people to join us.
No, thank you, Mia. You are doing a great job. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. You are great. And for those out there, let's support this and look into our future.
Amen to that. All right. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.